Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 4062, 63. I'm not really sure. Today's date is May 19, 2026. It's been almost like a morning at 8 a.m. Someone did burn something. I'm not really sure, but smoke's kind of like a feel like that. With that, someone kind of like a burning something. I don't know why. Just all right, yeah. So should we jump into the question? Yeah, let's go. By the way, I'm started reading a book. Okay, like from last 2-3 days, I was not really reading the book. Almost like a 4-5 days, I'm not reading the book. This book actually, and I feel a little bit of guilty to not to read this book because basically what is at least this thing. Now I bought this book almost like a cost me 300 rupees, 350 rupees, and how cost me almost like a 300 rupees. Okay, and not reading the book, it's kind of like a feel like that ki I am betraying myself. Okay, so I thought that ki like okay, let me tell you one thing. Now this book is a very big book. Okay, yeah, like a really big book, almost like a 500 pages. And also another thing is that now this book is like a very like it really required a kind of like a very like I'm not very like a fast reader, or I'm not really kind of like somebody a very deep reader too. I just started reading a book and kind of like reading someone else material, and the problem is not in the reading. Okay, it's like that now I don't like, if I wanted to read, I could able to be read like basically just like I would able to be read the entire book within a week. Okay, yeah. The problem is that now if I read the book, then I just read the book. I need a kind of like a whatever the stuff that I read, I need to take the information right here now. I need to understand what exactly book says and things and that and that. And the language that they say is a very much difficult. Okay, so that's some kind of like a thinking that he like it's like every information that's they are talking, it's kind of like a bouncing. Okay, the information kind of like a bouncing, and sometimes I kind of like a fall asleep while reading this book. It just like it doesn't really make sense, it doesn't really connect with me. Okay, so that's why I'm kind of like suddenly decided that not to read the book. Why do I supposed to spend time that I'm not consuming any kind of like information, things and that and that. But when I dropped the book, I realized that I'm kind of like betraying myself. No, I feel like that I'm like I'm kind of like somebody just betraying myself. It's not really good thing to drop the book. So instead of kind of like dropping the book, and I started kind of like reading a book, but not too much. Okay, like just a 10 minute. Okay, yeah, just 10 minute, or maybe kind of like a 5 pages, maybe that's it. Okay, just read 5 pages, and probably it would be kind of like a much more better to. Okay, like if I drop the book, I will feel like guilty. Okay, and I don't want to feel that guilt. Okay, so that's why instead of kind of like reading too much or reading too many pages that not getting, I wanted to read maybe just 10 minutes. I just set the alarm for 10 minutes, and I just read it just like whatever the 5-4 pages, and that's it, that's fine. Okay, I'm not kind of like expecting too much, but still started reading a book, and it, yeah, probably. All right, so what is at least this question? The question is, how will reporting work? Okay, yeah, that's a really good question. Okay, so how will reporting work? Okay, so first of all, what is at least this question, and why am I asking this question to myself? I wanted to build an app called My Artifact. Okay, what is at least this application? When you wrote the diary every single day, you cannot write the diary the way that you want it to. The reason is that basically is this thing, your writing speed is much more slower than your thought process. We actually think much more faster than we write. Why we write so slow? is not because of that ki we write slow, is because of that lot of things like we need a pen, we need a paper, we need a convenient and things and that. And even after that, a spelling mistake. And even after everything, we cannot able to be print our thoughts that much clearly. Why? Because it just like it's not really kind of like a writing is not a kind of like a better way to kind of like a somebody print your thoughts. It's not. But writing a journal is a very much essential thing. You actually connect with yourself, you actually reflect yourself more. But because of the writing process is kind of like so much difficult, that's why very less people are kind of like doing journaling, very less people are kind of like writing a diary, almost probably maybe nothing really at all. Okay, maybe kind of like a handful of people who are kind of like writing a diary, very less. So instead of writing a diary, what if we could record a diary, like audio recorded diary? Like in the audio recording diary, it would be kind of like a bit more convenient. Like basically, you don't need a paper, you don't need a kind of like a pen, you don't need a convenience. You just press record button, audio record, and just say everything. The camera or recorder will kind of like a print everything. We have a kind of like a somebody digital tool like a transcription that kind of like a convert audio into the text, which is kind of like a much more better way, right? So that's what I'm doing. I call this thing kind of like a somebody that key recording audio. I call this thing artifact. Okay, the stuff that you are kind of like listening right now, this is my artifact. My artifact episode number 4062. I am doing this thing for almost like a last 11 year. I am doing this thing every single day. Because of this artifact, recording artifact or recording diary or writing a diary is a self-reflection process. You actually connect with yourself. I actually connect with myself while recording this artifact. And it adds so much amount of value inside of me. The person that I am today and the person that I will become tomorrow, it is all because of artifact. And it adds so much amount of value in myself. Because of this process, because of this technicality, I get so much amount of value in myself. I wanted to share this process, I wanted to share this technicality to the people, so that people should supposed to be get the value in their life too. How do I supposed to share this technicality? How do I supposed to share this process? By building an application. Okay, so basically this thing, my application is a somewhat something like a YouTube, kind of like that. In the YouTube platform, you kind of like record your video, upload your video, other people sees your video. Same thing here is that key, you kind of like record your artifact, upload your artifact in the artifact platform, other people kind of like listen your platform. Artifact is an audio based platform, by the way. There is no video at all, just an audio based. One thing is that key, in my application there is a privacy feature that no one will gonna know their name and things and that. Like basically my real name is Saurabh Avthare, but my artifact handle name would be Prozac 1943 or something like that. So it kind of like maintain my security, maintain my privacy, maintain kind of like a things that I will hidden from the people. It's very much essential. Okay, so this is a kind of like a application. Now before I wanted to build this application, I wanted to know all the possible consequences. Okay, like am I doing right, am I doing wrong? Like no one kind of like somebody build such application before. So I just wanted to know all the possible consequences, that what might get wrong, and how do I supposed to be kind of like overcome that, like how do I supposed to overcome that challenges or things and that. So I went to ChatGPT, I tell my idea, and I suggest that I kind of like somebody tell him, I don't know, it's not, I tell okay, I put the prompt that key, I wanted to know all the possible consequences, what might gonna go wrong, worst possible consequences, suggest me that in the question format. So ChatGPT kind of like suggests me hundreds of question. This is one of those question. By the way, the question actually in the mobile phone, but while recording it's cannot able to do this thing, so that's why I wrote the question in here. Alright, so question is, how will reporting work? Now what's exactly reporting? A reporting means like that na ki, let's just say because of the my platform is a kind of like a something anonymous based platform. Like a user can log in through Google, but basically their identity is kept hidden. No one will gonna know their name and things and that and that. Now because of this kind of like hidden, people might talk some sort of things that they shouldn't supposed to talk, hate speeches or things or that, or maybe something that they might kind of like a really worse. Okay, yeah, because people have kind of like a different thought process and people kind of like a talk so many things. So people will gonna talk shit. Even I also talk shit too. It's not really that people will not gonna talk shit. It's yeah, it's their mind. Human mind are very messy, by the way. So if the people are actually kind of like a talking such shit stuff, how do I supposed to prevent other user? Like basically, let's just say is this thing. Let's take a kind of like a example. Let's take a kind of like example is that you build a club. Okay, a club where a kind of like a people will gonna come, they will kind of like a dance, they will kind of like enjoy the drink, they will have a good time. So this is a kind of like a club that you made, but a kind of like a random people came and they are kind of like a somebody doing something stupid, like a basically, yeah, the club are actually offering the alcohol, yes, but some people are kind of like a drinking alcohol and they are kind of like a doing like a nasty stuff. They are kind nasty stuff means they are dancing. Like you can also dance in club, it's not really that, but the way that you dance is just kind of like a spoiling, like a, you are kind of like a somebody is dancing not well, you are kind of like a somebody is this thing that keep like a basically doing a lot of jhagda or kind of like a things and that, or maybe oh it's all about to my madu, right? It's kind of like that, I don't know, yeah, like a like not being drinking in manner. Okay, probably this would be kind of like a much more better. So when that particular person do some sort of thing in your club, your area, the club kind of like a the spoiled, the kind of like environment became spoiled. The people who came to your club with the genuine interest, like they will kind of like enjoy their good times and things and that, but some people spoiling that environment by kind of like doing this stupid shit. Okay, yeah. So the people who are really genuinely people came there, they will not gonna stay at your club, they will kind of like leave. And this is kind of like a somebody like a, this will kind of like a create a like a chaos. Then after that kind of like a somebody that your club will kind of like a became strip club, or maybe I don't know, something that can be even more chaos and things and that. So you have to control that chaos. Okay, you have to control that chaos. Yeah, you wanted that key user should supposed to be kind of like a drink and dance and things and that, but with the kind of like a proper a limit, a proper kind of like a things. If they are kind of like a doing their own thing, then spoiling their environment, and you don't want that because it kind of like a damages your club. So how do you supposed to prevent them? You have to be kind of like a kick them out, right? You have to kick them out, like basically you are kind of like a dancing, or you are doing alcohol and things like that. You are kind of like a spoiling the environment, so you are kind of like a kick them out. Now in the club you can do this thing because club is a club, but I'm running a platform, a social media platform. I cannot able to be kick out the people. Okay, yeah. So how do I supposed to be kind of like a things and that. So in that situation, I have the report button. Okay, yeah. A report button is a kind of like a things that let me kind of like a tell you everything regarding about the how artifact will kind of like a go through and how the user will kind of like a listen the artifact. Okay, yeah. So first of all is that the every user will kind of like a record the artifact. Okay, whoever the user will be, that artifact will actually like when that artifact went into the server. Okay, like after the user kind of like hit the public and that artifact went to the server. So when that artifact went to the server, it kind of like go through multiples of judgmental process. Okay, first of all is that every artifact is actually judged by the 30-70 ratio, means like that 30% of your artifact is actually judged by the Adam is a algorithm, Adam is a AI. Okay, it judged by 30%. 70% actually judged by the people. How does people will gonna judge? How many like that you get, how many kind of like somebody dislike that you get, or how many watch duration that you have, how many people actually watch your listen your artifact. Probably in that particular statistic, kind of like a determine that key, like a 70% of the people will kind of like a judge and things and that. Okay, yeah. Now let me tell you one thing. Now people interact whatever that they wanted to. Okay, like judgmental of, like people kind of like give the judgmental and things and that, which is really good. But let's talk about the 30% of the judgmental by AI. Okay, so what exactly is this thing and how it should supposed to be? Okay, so let me tell you one thing. The 30% and 70%. Let's talk about the 30%. 30% first. Okay. So basically, is this thing. Now let's talk about 70%. This is a very majority part of this thing. Okay. So artifact will kind of like a publish. Okay. Now no, not 70%. Let's talk about 30% first. Okay, because like basically is this thing. What exactly happened? That ki each artifact episode is actually judged by the 30% of the AI and 70% by the people. Now, like at the beginning, at first, AI would judge first. Okay, yeah, because people interaction came later, na. Like it's not really that ki people upload and kind of like some people are kind of like waiting and listening and things and that and that. Obviously, it takes time. Okay, probably maybe a kind of like somebody. Maybe kind of like something a day. Okay, 24 hour, because in 24 hour you will kind of like realize that ki, okay, like this is the kind of like people are kind of like giving judgmental and things and that and that. Okay, yeah, people judgmental takes time with respect to time, but judgmental by AI, judgment by Adam will kind of like a judge. That judgment came quickly. Okay, so how is that actually happen? So basically each artifact will kind of like went into the server. Adam listen that thing. Okay, Adam not only just listen, it understand your context and understand what you says. Okay, yeah. Adam understand the sarcasm. Adam understand the kind of like a things that ki like basically the joke or things and that वगैरह वगैरह, lot of things. Okay, so because of Adam understand, then what exactly is this thing? Let me tell you one thing. What is exactly that? We are humans and we are interact with some certain emotion. Let me kind of like give you context. Okay, yeah. So let's just say a comedian. A comedian is a kind of like a something criticizing the government with very a fun way, a kind of like a really fun way. So you laugh. Okay, and after you laugh and someone says that he, how was the comedy club, you might gonna say really good. How you rate 10 out of 9? Why? Because of that you really laugh a lot. Okay, so basically is this thing, the particular person kind of like said something regarding about the government is completely wrong. Okay, yeah, or maybe fake or whatever it is, but still you kind of like give the thumbs up. Because of that you laugh in that comment, you laugh in that show. Basically is this thing, we don't judge what other people say, we judge other people that how they say, like this is what it is. Okay, yeah, like if the right person is actually talking really right, we don't really listen that much. Why? Because the right person, how he actually talk. Okay, yeah, like this is very much essential that we fall in love with a kind of like a particular person talking, not what he talk. This is what the kind of like a thing is, and that's why humans are kind of like easily manipulated by, they don't really understand that what other people kind of like say. They just kind of like somebody that they just love that how the particular person says. So that's why a comedian, they kind of like a talking shit, like the government kind of like did this or that or whatever, or they might but criticize whatever they wanted to. Okay, but it's kind of like a people fall in love with them because in the end they kind of like a laugh to the people. Okay, so this is what it is. We give the kind of like some interaction regarding about how we supposed to be feel, but Adam does not feel anything at all. Adam understand the context, sarcasm and things and that and basically it try to understand that is the stuff that he says is legitimately right or wrong or things and that or understand the what might consequences will gonna happen. Adam understand that. Adam kind of like figure it out the what kind of like a consequences will gonna happen. If the right consequences happen, push them. Like Adam kind of like give the rating 10 out of maybe kind of like a 7 or 8 or things and that. Let's just say a particular person record artifact regarding about that he's kind of like a feeling really worthless or maybe kind of like a things and that and tomorrow he wanted to kind of like a something that push himself more or maybe kind of like a do some hard work or maybe kind of like a, I don't know, a kind of like a self-helpful process or a kind of like a self-helpful thing. or maybe he will talking about that ki how do he supposed to be kind of like a perform much more better in the next cricket match or things and that. So he talk about that particular stuff. So basically it's a very self-reflection process. A particular person kind of like a somebody try to kind encourage himself by things and he record the artifact. Now that artifact is really helpful, not only helpful for him but helpful for other people too. Okay, yeah. So basically it's a really right artifact, or and there is a right consequences will gonna happen. So Adam kind of like a give them rating to higher, like a 10 out of 8 or 7 or maybe more than that 9. So that kind of like a something that artifact to the recommend to the more and more people, so that value added people kind of like a get more interaction, more views and more kind of like a listeners and things and that. Okay, but if you are kind of like a talking about things that dude like I did kind of like a sex with a two girl at the same time. Okay, yeah. So basically this particular person kind of like a recorded artifact regarding about that he did sex two girl at the same time. Now is he right, is he wrong, is he faking, I'm not really sure. Okay, but he was kind of like a recording artifact regarding about that stuff. Now basically is this thing, is it right? No, it's completely wrong. Okay, yeah, you cannot able to do sex two girl at the same time until you unless you are porn star or things and that. Okay, so basically is this thing, if the people listen this artifact, obviously people will gonna listen because people wanted to know how he fucked two girl at the same time. Okay, but that is completely wrong. It kind of like a showing a very wrong message to the society, and this is completely wrong. So Adam understand that even if that particular person kind of like a saying with a sarcasm and kind of like a very light tone and very kind of like a feel really good, but what he says is completely wrong. Okay, yeah, and if the people would kind of like a somebody listen that artifact, this would be kind of like a very wrong kind of like a somebody message goes to the people. So basically Adam gives the rating 10 out of maybe 2 or 3 and things and that. Okay, yeah. So what is actually happening in that situation? So Adam gives the rating. So basically a value added artifact will kind of like get the higher rating by the Adam. Very less value will kind of like get by the people will kind of like getting very less value. Okay, yeah. And also regarding about that, it kind of like a recommend to the more. Okay, higher value of number will kind of like a recommend to the more and more people. Lower value of the people will kind of like a recommend to the less and less people. Okay, less and less people. So basically because of this thing, if my artifact is kind of like a filled with really good people, they are kind of like a talking about the self-help kind of like a things or experience or whatever it is, it's kind of like a create a very good community, good culture, a good platform or good kind of like a things that people share their good thoughts and things and that. If the people are kind of like a talking shit and they are kind of like a getting very less interaction, less views or things and that, they will not gonna record again such thing. Why? Because of that ki we are kind of like a human and we are kind of like a thinking through the feedback loop. Okay, that like basically is this thing, this might not gonna work, so we're not gonna talk about that. My platform is kind of like a design for such a way that kind of like a somebody encourage people to kind of like a making them better, believe themselves, that like a kind of like a self-help or things and that. Okay, I want that, not kind of like a somebody being porn and things and sex stories and that. People might gonna talk about the sex story too. People will gonna talk about that they might gonna fuck and things and that. And even if they are kind of like a doing too much, then their profile will kind of like a suspended. They will not gonna block out. I will not gonna kick them out. Because why? Because our thoughts change throughout the time. Today I'm talking shit, but tomorrow I might not. Okay, so probably blocking that particular account is not really right. Kind of like a suspend that account for at least like a week or two. After that, that particular person might gonna understand, okay, we will not gonna talk about this particular stuff. Alright, but dude, this is the 30% of the judgmental system. Nah, what about the 70%? Okay, let me kind of like tell you how is actually happening. Okay, so imagine a kind of like a box. Imagine a kind of like a box. A good artifact box, bad artifact box. Okay, and this is an artifact. Okay, this is a kind of like a artifact, and there is a claw is actually connected, and that claw decide that key that artifact where it fall, a good box or bad box. Okay, so it's a good box. Okay, so when the artifact get published, okay, and that clause means that Adam will kind of like give the kind of like a rating regarding about that how good is the artifact, how bad is the artifact. Okay, yeah. Now if the artifact is really good, like Adam gives the rating of 8 or maybe 9 or whatever, that artifact fall into the good box. That fall into the good box. Okay, yeah. and if the artifact kind of like a went bad or things like that, it kind of like a went into the bad box. Okay, do you understand? I'm kind of like a giving you scenario so that you might gonna understand a good box and bad box. Okay, now basically Adam already decided that ki this is a really good artifact, the collection of here in this box are really good artifact. Okay, and basically if that artifact kind of like simply went into the public, okay, people will kind of like give the interaction. Okay, let me tell you one thing how the kind of like a people interaction different. Okay, if I already mentioned this particular person is right, the 10 people around me they also say this thing, oh, this particular person is actually right. Why? Because of that ki our thoughts are changed with multiple people. Example, you, okay, I'm kind of like giving the same comedian example, but comedian example would be kind of like a much more better. Okay, a comedian crack a joke, you already heard it or you might not laugh, but because of hundreds of people are kind of like a laughing, unfortunately you are laughed too. Unfortunately you are laughed too. It's not because of the joke, is because of that ki kind of like a somebody other people are kind of like a laughing, so that's why you are kind of like a laughing too. Okay, so our human interaction change according to the people, and that is a true. So it just say that ki if the kind of like 100 people are kind of like Adam are kind of like giving them, these are kind of like good artifact box, these are the box are a collection of good artifact, people are kind of like listening it, and already people kind of like say this is a really good artifact, then kind of like interaction change and people kind of like say okay, this is a good artifact, and it will kind of like recommend more and more. People are kind of like giving the more interaction and things and that, it will kind of like recommend more. If this is a bad artifact is already determined, already give the rating that this is a bad artifact, people already expect that ki, okay, this is a bad artifact, so this is what should be supposed to be expected. So because this is a bad artifact, Adam kind of like gives a rating, then people might gonna say, oh, this is a bad artifact, so try not to watch this thing, or maybe watch and kind of like a dislike or whatever it is, or maybe report and things and that. So basically what exactly happened that na ki bad artifact box will kind of like have little less, or maybe there is no less artifact, and good artifact has a more good artifact, and it will kind of like recommend more and things and that it kind of like create the community in much more better way. Okay, so this is how I kind of like making sure that ki good artifact and bad artifact. Okay, bad artifact always be there, I cannot able to be eliminate that. It's a nature law is that ki good things is became good thing when there is a bad thing. If there is no bad thing, then there is the existence of good thing is nothing. Okay, so good thing and bad thing, good thing is became good thing when there is a bad thing, and bad thing is exists because of the good thing. Okay, so you cannot separate, you cannot eliminate one each other. No, these are always been there. I have to be make sure that good thing happen more, good artifact happen more, bad artifact happen less. Understand? Now because of this process, I am already filter out the bad thing. Okay, but still people will gonna talk shit, and even if the people might gonna kind of like listening this bad artifact. Okay, so in that particular process, if user kind of like thinks that dude, this is a bad, okay, I have to be report that thing, they have to be kind of like give the report button, flag out this thing. So when the flag out this thing, it will kind of like assembly what is actually is this thing that key Adam judgment actually like that artifact will kind of like recommend to the even less people. Okay, it will not gonna block out like basically I mentioned that I will not gonna block the kind of like account, it will gonna suspend for time. If that particular person talking shit all the time, then probably is this thing that artifact will kind of like assembly is this thing that account will kind of like block it, it will kind of like recommend to the less and less people. So this is how I kind of like assembly reporting work, and this is how I kind of like assembly kept away that bad artifact to the people, so that my club will not gonna get spoiled out. So this is how, okay, now how the reporting work actually happened. Same thing like when the user kind of like click the report button, okay, that key this is a kind of like a bad. So yeah, okay, let me tell you one thing. Let's just say a good artifact, okay, Adam kind of like give the rating 10 out of 9, okay, but user kind of like give the flag like report that this is not really good thing. Okay, and when the user kind of like give the report button in the good artifact, so in that situation Adam get confused that key is it kind of like a bad artifact. Okay, then what exactly is this thing? Adam is not look at the artifact, Adam look at the user who kind of like a put the flag, or Adam, like a user will kind of like a simply like why does user kind of like put the flag? Adam try to understand the user because of the his previous artifact and things and that and that. And if that particular user who is kind of like a recording bad artifact and things like that, like for the bad artifact people who record the bad artifact, for those good artifact is always became bad for them. Okay, they think that this is a kind of like completely wrong, so they will kind of like a things and that and that. So if the bad user are kind of like a simply giving the report button to the good artifact, it will not gonna impact that much. Why? Because this particular person is already a bad person. Okay, yeah. So the recommendation like it will kind of like simply it will kind of like simply recommend more because it's already a good artifact. Adam gives a kind of like a really right, people are kind of like a really good interaction, this particular person kind of like a giving the bad. So basically Adam understand, okay, this user is already a bad person, or maybe his thought process are really bad and things and that. So basically ignore that particular person. Probably this would be kind of like a things, but it will actually happen in backend and things and that. But still again, I'm not really sure about the technical point of perspective, how do I supposed to implement that thing, because I am not a, like at the beginning, okay, I'm kind of like building this application. So at the beginning I don't really have that feature at the moment, but in the future I might have, but not right now. Okay, so in the future I might have this feature and I will gonna implement. But in technical point of perspective, I'm not really sure how do I supposed to do that, but still a kind of like a somewhat something equal like that way. All right, this is it. This is how the reporting button will gonna work. Thank you.